Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at washingtech.com/book. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Moving the needle. Welcome to the Washingtech Policy Podcast.
Curating communications, media, and tech policy news so you don't have to. News, interviews, everything you need without the axe to grind. It's the Washingtech Policy Podcast with Joe Miller.
The Supreme Court empowers judges to warrant searches of computers outside their jurisdictions. Comcast buys DreamWorks for $3.8 billion, and Katja Schroeder is my guest. The Supreme Court has adopted proposed rules that would empower judges to issue search warrants for computers located anywhere, not just within the judge's own jurisdiction. This is Rule 41 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. Previously, the FBI first had to find out a device's location and then get a warrant from a judge within that jurisdiction. Now, judges can issue warrants to remotely search suspects' computers, even if they don't know where the computers are located. The FBI would do this by infecting suspected devices with malware. Gizmodo has more about the implications of this, including an interview with ACLU Legislative Counsel Nima Singh Giuliani, who told Gizmodo the new rule could result in the searches of devices that belong to innocent people. But the rule doesn't take effect right away. Section 2074 of the Rules Enabling Act states rules prescribed by the Supreme Court can't go into effect prior to December 1st of the year in which the court prescribed them, and Congress can prevent the proposed rule from going into effect any time before then. Comcast has announced it will purchase DreamWorks for $3.8 billion. DreamWorks titles include Shrek and Kung Fu Panda. The Federal Trade Commission and Department of Justice are now within that 30-day initial review period, during which they'll decide if they want to review the deal further before it closes. The House has unanimously passed the Email Privacy Act. The act updates the 1986 Electronic Communications Privacy Act, or ECPA, which failed to protect emails from warrantless searches. The new Email Privacy Act would close the loophole and require law enforcement officials to obtain a warrant to search through your emails. You can find out more at Ars Technica. TechCrunch reports that Uber has been slapped with a nationwide class action lawsuit for the way the company classifies its drivers. Uber drivers filed the complaint in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois, and they're asking the court to classify Uber drivers as employees rather than independent contractors. Uber recently settled cases in California and Massachusetts, one of which was to the tune of $100 million. TechCrunch has more. The Communications Workers of America is claiming that T-Mobile is violating federal labor laws by effectively creating its own internal union. Bloomberg has more. Over 400,000 people petitioned Google last week to drop out of sponsoring the Republican National Convention in protest of Donald Trump. Microsoft has already backed out. Google, however, has decided to move forward with participating. The company will stream the convention on YouTube and provide real-time election data. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Federal Trade Commission will be taking a deeper look into Alphabet's competition practices and whether it is illegally exploiting Android's dominance. The FBI has said it is unable to submit to the federal government any information about the method it used to hack into one of the San Bernardino shooter's iPhone. The agency claims it didn't purchase the rights to the technical details, and so it is legally precluded from releasing the information. So the public may never know how the FBI unlocked the phone. Finally, for the first time in 25 years, Congress has reauthorized the FCC. The reauthorization lasts through fiscal year 2018. Now all they have to do is reconfirm Commissioner Rosenworcel, which Republicans have delayed for many months now for no apparent non-political reason. Stay with us. For Washington Tech Policy Podcast listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You'll be amazed at how much time Audible will save you. It's saved me a massive, massive amount of time. Just ridiculous. Ridiculous. How about Blue Ocean Strategy? How to create uncontested market space and make the competition irrelevant by W. Chan Kim and ReneéMauborgne. You can download Blue Ocean Strategy free by trying audible.com. Sign up for your free audiobook and 30-day trial today at washingtech.com/book. I like to mix up the guests a bit. Tech has such broad implications. The scope of guests we can have on the show is essentially limitless because tech touches everything. So today we're going to be talking about your marketing. How's your marketing coming along, by the way? If you're like me, it's a constant struggle trying to stay on top of policy developments, not to mention staying active on social media and pushing out fresh content. So Katja Schroeder is here today to give us a bit of a primer. Katja is an adjunct professor at St. Francis College, where she teaches international marketing and social media marketing. She's the managing director of Bloom, a transmedia startup agency within the Reuter Finn global network that helps companies thrive with integrated marketing communications campaigns across social channels and digital screens. Katja has developed award-winning integrated communications and marketing programs for companies of all sizes in North America, Europe, and Asia. She holds an MA in Communications and Business Administration from the Free University of Berlin and an MA in Communications and Information Sciences from Paris Sorbonne University. She is a published author and frequently blogs about entrepreneurship, digital media, and the way technology innovation enables sustainable development. She is also on the board of the St. Francis College Center for Entrepreneurship. Please welcome Katja Schroeder. Katja, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. It's great to be here.
We hear a lot about the importance of social media marketing for business and inside the Beltway for direct lobbying, but there are many advocacy organizations like those that are mid-sized or just starting out, especially, who are putting their financial resources to other things, such as staff, rent, and all the other overhead that's necessary to have a national presence. Most of the people that I've spoken with who lead these organizations recognize the importance of social media, but feel they don't have the time or that social media just can't be a priority given the white papers they need to push out, regulatory filings they're working on, not to mention events, panels, and all the other core services they provide to their clients, funders, and members. But this is going to be more than tactical. We'll get into the tactical stuff in a sec. This is really about survival, because let's face it, the days of funders just giving organizations money out of the goodness of their hearts are over. Today, it's audience, your ability to build an audience both inside and outside the Beltway, that's going to be the linchpin for organizations new and old. So Katja, thanks again for joining me.
Great to be here.
So let's start with a hypothetical. I'm a small or mid-sized organization. Maybe I've been around for a while and I'm having trouble adapting, or maybe I'm brand new. For this, let's assume rebranding is the same as just starting out. It's not, but just to keep things simple, let's assume that. What are you going to need to know about my business, Katja, before you advise me?
Companies are often challenged by the explosion of new social and digital channels and platforms. And as you mentioned, companies have recognized the importance. They're a little bit struggling with it, especially because there are so many channels and platforms popping up. Right now, everybody is really interested in Snapchat and seeing how valid it is as a marketing platform, not just for B2C, but also for B2B companies. And when I asked my students at the Center for Entrepreneurship at St. Francis 3 years ago which channels they used the most, a few of them were on Snapchat, and most of them favored Instagram. Today, all of them are on Snapchat, and Facebook is still there, but a little bit more passive than before. And this is also what we see with the latest market research. And of course, as you said, if you're looking at your entire marketing program from white papers to social activation, and budget is an issue for you, you need to think about what are the most relevant key channels and where can I reach the audience that is most of interest to me. And so that brings us really back to the fundamentals. It is still about figuring out what is my key metric to measure the engagement, and which channels do my audience use, and how do I reach them, and what content do I need to give them to get to a great engagement. Not just like, I'm pushing out content, my white papers through are now also social media channels. How can I actually turn my white paper into social media tidbits that makes it interested for my audience that is on social media channels to engage with me?
And it's a constant challenge, especially in DC. It's such a walled garden. It's really hard to kind of get out there and reach the audience that's outside the Beltway. But, it's really you have to do it. And that's really what it comes down to. In Jim Collins' classic Good to Great, he discusses the key traits most successful organizations have had over the years. In your experience, what are some of the key traits in terms of organizational culture that organizations who are effective at implementing social media seem to share?
That's a great question. And it's always good to actually tie whatever you do in social media marketing, and we call it now transmedia marketing, to your business strategy. Collins defines getting a great company with 3 key criteria. One is getting superior results. Second is making a distinctive impact. And thirdly, achieving a lasting endurance. This means greatness does not have an end point. And that's exactly how you should look at marketing, social media marketing, transmedia marketing. It's a circular process. We set goals to engage with specific audiences. We create the content for engagement. We'll select the right channels. We measure, then we refine and repeat. And with every turn and connection, we can increase these relationships and feed the information back to the organization. What has changed really is that when you look at the 4 P's of marketing, product, price, place, and promotion, in terms of social media marketing or transmedia marketing, the emphasis has been traditionally on the promotional P. But what great companies have realized that you can actually use it to get feedback from your audience and then filter it back into product research and development, and then help with your business strategy overall.
And you're saying that social media is not just a promotion platform, that it's also a platform to gather research.
Exactly. Yeah. It is circular, and it helps you also with other parts of the companies, from product development to finding better ways for distribution. And of course, promotion is still a big emphasis, but it's not the only emphasis that you should have for your social media marketing.
So how would someone in the Beltway figure that out? Should they presumably focus on LinkedIn, for example, or should they even attempt to go outside the Beltway? I mean, what should be the frame? I mean, how should it work? Because I think folks that I've spoken to here in town, like I said before, it's really sort of a gated community. They don't necessarily feel the need to go out and do that outreach as much. So should they just assume that they need to be on all these different things, or should they sort of dabble in each one until they find one that clicks? What's sort of the best approach?
It is very tempting to just hop onto the next hot social media channel and be there. But it's not always the best way, especially if you look at the time and resources it needs to continue the engagement through the social media channels that you pick. So with each social media channel that you decide is the right one for your company, there is an obligation to actually keep it active and engaging, and that actually takes a lot of time and work. And that time and work might take away time from other areas that you should focus on. So my recommendation is to really concentrate on the ones where your key audience is. And that's very different whether you are B2B, business to business, or business to consumer company. I would imagine if you are more in the Beltway, it might be more of a B2B business for you. So LinkedIn is definitely the number 1 channel for B2B companies. And it's a very good avenue for you to connect. And you can also use features like the blogging feature on LinkedIn, where you can put up weekly posts about your thoughts and your business, not too promotional, like mix it up so that it's more thought leadership on the blog post. And then you have for your company updates, those can be more promotional. So that I would recommend as one of the channels to do as a B2B company and be really focused on the topics that you want to establish your thought leadership in the Beltway region. In addition to that, if you have a website with a blog, then use that and link it also together and do content marketing. Content marketing is another really great tool for more B2B companies to establish their thought leadership and get the word out about them.
And how would you prioritize the size of an organization's audience versus the quality of their engagement? And what defines good quality in social media marketing?
Good quality is original content. Of course, there are ways that you can pull third-party content like articles that you read and research studies that you saw and use them to create posts that share your point of view. That is fine, but the best quality is really content that you create yourself, that shows something else, that shows a new perspective, that gives people another data point for their discussion or for their own social media post that people want to share. And it's a little bit more tricky for sharing on the B2B side because B2B companies seem to be more corporate, more conservative in their approach than the B2B companies. Consumer companies have it a little bit easier in terms of engagement because they can be sometimes more fun. But it doesn't mean as a B2B company you cannot be fun. You can find ways to make content compelling, but still have it in line with your overall values and the company ID that you have.
And how should organizations assess quality? How do they know if they're, sort of doing it right, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Mm-hmm. When we look at social media, then an easy way to measure quality is how you increase the reach on the channels that you picked, and then also how people are engaging about the content that you offer them. So in terms of engagement, that could be retweets, shares. You will see other companies picking up your content and quoting it and using it for their communications. That is kind of like the highest praise that you can have for your content. It is really about how your content is being used. If it's just on your channels and hanging in there, then the quality of content might have not hit an emotional chord or a need with your audience. But if you see it being shared and retweeted and coming up even like in speeches or in articles, then you did a really great job at your content.
So let's get into the moment we've all been waiting for, tactics. Let's start with a nonprofit executive who has maybe a staff of 5 and everyone in the organization is overextended. What are some of the tools organizations of this size can use to streamline their social media marketing and develop a strong presence at minimal cost? For example, if the executive director wanted to use the tools herself, what tools should she acquire?
One very good tool that I also personally use a lot is Hootsuite. It's a social media management tool. It allows you to schedule posts and also get some type of measurement from your social media activities across different channels, including the key channels like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Snapchat, not yet. Hopefully at some point. I would defer to Hootsuite for that. It is easy. If you have a social media calendar, every week you look at it. What are the messages that I want to communicate each week? You create the posts for the different channels, and then you can pre-schedule them based on also when your audience is online and is most likely to read them. And in addition to that, you can still go into the tool or into each of the channels directly and engage with your audience on a daily basis. Because what should not happen is that you just put your social media calendar online and you let it run, but you're not actually going inside and interacting with people. It should be a mix of both. And Hootsuite, tools like Hootsuite, they really help you to manage some of the posts, and you can concentrate on the live engagement. There's other ones like TweetDeck, and also Buffer helps you. There's tools that really help you to make your work easier.
So what would be some milestones for organizations who are going from essentially zero social media marketing to having a respectable level of engagement? What are some checkpoints?
That's a tricky question, as it always depends on the type of organization that you have. And of course, when you start with your social media program and your Twitter followers are 0, then it is more difficult to attract followers over time. I would recommend at that time to really have a steady stream of content and test which content pieces get the most engagement, and then focus on those. Do a weekly check-in, which ones work best, and adjust your program. And then every month, look at the numbers, how you increased the number of Twitter followers, how you increased the number of Facebook likes, which posts went really well, which posts didn't get any traction, where your engagement is. And the engagement metrics will come a little bit later once you have a critical mass of people that are following you on social media channels. I do recommend a combination of paid, earned, and shared for your strategy. Paid meaning that it is useful to invest in sponsored posts or sponsored profiles, especially in the beginning when you're building up your profiles. I don't mean that you should buy your Twitter followers. Don't buy your Twitter followers, because you end up with people that are really not interested in your business. But it does make sense for sponsored posts, because the metrics or also like the ability to target paid social media posts on Twitter or Facebook and others is great. You can target by zip code, you can target by interest, by demographics. So if you're targeting people in the Beltway and you have a certain age group and a certain interest that these people should have, then having sponsored posts and targeting towards that audience will really help you to get your numbers up more quickly in the beginning.
Wow, Katja, this has been just fantastic advice, just incredible value. And I encourage anyone to, if you missed something, go back and review, because there's so many morsels, so many helpful tips that you can start implementing right away. So it's been an absolute privilege having you on the show, Katja. I just want to ask you a few more questions and then we'll close. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right. On this podcast, we like to talk about policy and entrepreneurship, but also about what makes successful people like you tick. Tell us, Katja, what are some habits, tactics, and apps that you use every day to stay on top of your game?
I'm a voracious reader. I spend my mornings, I get up, the first thing I do, I scan social media channel, look for the news. I'll read all the newspapers that I get at home, and then throughout the week and days, I go through sites like Fast Company, Mashable, NPR, Media Post, New York Times, and BuzzFeed. I'll constantly just look what the news is and how I can actually use it for my clients and for their business.
And tell us the name of one of those books that you read recently that you're recommending to basically everyone you meet.
At the moment, I'm very focused on analytics, especially when you're looking at making the most use of the resources you have and make sure it's spent the right way. Analytics helps you, and there's already a lot of social media analytics for each channel that help you, but then overall how you do it across channels. So at the moment, the pile of books that I have is like all about analytics. And the one that I want to recommend, it's called Small Data, The Tiny Clues That Uncover Huge Trends by Martin Lindstrom. And it really talks about how he discovered and observed, like, from the way consumer behaved or what preference they had, and then use that to find an untapped market and to create a new product or to change product and brand positioning based on that data that he collected. The other book that I always still go back to and like to read is Blue Ocean Strategy by Chan Kim and ReneéMauborgne, the INSEAD professors. It's a classic, and I think it's still valued because it teaches you not to compete where everybody is competing, and instead look for white spaces, opportunities, and that's where analytics comes in. How do you find those? So you can use now analytics, and you can use social media. You can crowdsource data and get that analytics to find your untapped market.
Yeah, one of the authors of Blue Ocean Strategy was actually on Tony Robbins' podcast not too long ago. I think they're coming out with a new book. I'm looking forward to that.
Can't wait to read it.
But thanks again, Katja, for joining me. Do you have any final ideas you'd like to leave with the audience before we close? And where can folks find you online?
Oh, okay. Let's start with the social media channel. So happy to connect with everyone on social media. My Twitter handle is Schroek, SCHROEK. The company's website is bloompr.com. And please check out, especially if you're an entrepreneur, the website of St. Francis Center for Entrepreneurship. It's in Brooklyn. We host events for entrepreneurs. We have a virtual incubator. So if you have questions, we're there to help you. And you can follow the Center for Entrepreneurship at Entrepreneur SFC on Twitter. I just wanted to leave one thought behind, because always people are looking for ways to break through the clutter. And with social media, there's so much content already out there, and you're competing. So it's like the red ocean, right? So it's not just your business that is in the red ocean. It is also your marketing and social media strategy, or transmedia strategy, as I call it, that is in the red ocean. So you have to look for ideas, how you engage with your audience that really strikes an emotional chord. And sometimes that might be that you hop out of, on shared cultural moments, that you look at trends, but that is really more powerful than creating content that doesn't have an emotional connection with your audience. And so I would rather focus on something that is very, very dear to your audience's heart than masses of content that they look at but not really relate to. I see us heading into an era where the audience that you want to connect to, they seek more personalities, and they seek that personalities also in the brand that you have as a company. And you can do that with social and digital channels. And I encourage you to be a little bit of a social media daredevil.
You've been listening to Katja Schroeder, adjunct professor at St. Francis College, where she teaches international marketing and social media marketing. She's the managing director of Bloom, a transmedia startup agency within the Reuter Finn Global Network that helps companies thrive with integrated marketing communications campaigns across social channels and digital screens. Katja, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
That concludes episode 37 of the podcast. Thanks so much to all of you for listening. And be sure and head over to iTunes and give this show a ratings and review. It really helps the show tremendously and will only take you a couple of seconds, I promise. Thanks again to all of you for listening. And as always, I will see you back here next week. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Washing Tech Policy Podcast. You've been briefed.